Hello everyone, this is Lala, and today I'm going to be talking about reviewing and recapping the Challenge War of the Worlds from a retrospective point of view. So my experience with this season when it came out is that I loved the season and it was my favorite season. I thought it was so fresh. I really liked the simplistic format of them just setting people based on partnerships. Sorry, setting pairs. I really liked the idea of the tribunal, and it wasn't messy like how it was with the Troika. It was simply the top three best performing teams or duos when they went solo got into the tribunal, and they all had to nominate three people or three pairs to go into elimination. Then they choose one, and whomever is nominated gets to call out anyone they want to face as an opponent. So I just really like that format. Having half of the cast be rookies, essentially, was a really new thing. You can definitely tell that they are still very into casting people from Big Brother and a lot of the UK people as well. So they're really reaching out to those two sources to get more of a casting pool. And I think it was a mixed bag. All of the Big Brother newbies, but Josh, but heck, you could even include him if you wanted to, absolutely flopped. So I think that's why they kind of moved on from casting BB people, at least within the next season. But it's a lot of the UK people who really, really stood out. They made a mark for themselves. They were very entertaining. They got confrontational when need be. They also had no care about hooking up with anyone or anything that they wanted to, and they were all united together since they knew one another from the outside world. So there's still some interconnectedness as well. I do think that the vet cast was pretty stacked. We definitely had sophomores in Polly and Devon. We had newer vets like a Kyle, a Cam, and I don't know if Hunter would be considered newer, but he debuted season 29. And you'd have older veterans like a Nani and a Wes coming back. And I think what makes this cast even stand out more, in my opinion, is that a lot of the more established veterans went home early, like SET, Bananas, Zach, Leroy, and people who in general just weren't going to contribute a whole lot. So a lot of the newer vets and the newbies were able to establish themselves personality-wise and competitively on the season as well. At the same time, I do feel like this season brought some of the issues that would eventually plague Era 4, like casting random international people who had absolutely no connections to anyone. Turbo was a hit, but people like an Alan or a JP or even a Shailene, though she was Canadian, came out of absolutely nowhere. And Dee was kind of successful until she turned out not to be, but we'll get there when we get to that season. But she had no connections to anyone as she was from Australia. So they kind of lost the factor of casting a bunch of people from Big Brother and a bunch of UK people that knew one another so we could follow their relationships and so they could align with one another. More towards casting a bunch of rookies who had no connections to anyone. And they started that with this season and they picked up from that and it got worse and worse as the era went on. But anyways, I do feel like this season brought a lot of structure back, which was definitely missing from the last few seasons, and arguably going back to like season 27 or 28, if I remember correctly, where there's a lot more focus on the drama, but the gameplay formatting was complete ass all the way around. So you can definitely tell that they wanted the season to be a lot more competitive and a lot more structured, and it definitely worked for this season, but it didn't lose the drama and the personality that the challenge was known for. Also, I wasn't the biggest fan of them splitting up the pairs two-thirds throughout the season, but it's clear that the network wanted 16 episodes and they split them up so that he gets to 16 episodes. But it wasn't a big hindrance, in my opinion. So overall, I still really, 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 really like it, but I don't think it's one of my top faves anymore. And now that I've rewatched few, I've watched all of the challenge seasons, and some of them I've watched a few times at this point, I have a better appreciation and context for the show where I can compare this season to the other ones, I realized that it's not the best season. 16 veterans, which includes second season players, unlike the Gauntlet seasons, are playing against 18 newbies. And we have the veterans riding motorcycles to meet up with the rookies. Nanny and Wes come back after a hiatus of a few years and seasons, and the rookies come out of their tents. Of course, Devon recognizes the BB people, Julia and Liz being from her initial season, and Josh as well, which she's looking forward to, and Kyle recognizes some of the UK people. Impending doom is the purge, where they have to grab a ball that is rolling down the desert, go back to the top, or the daily, I should say, since it's not a purge for some of the people. Anyway, so they have to run back to the top with their ball, put it in some sort of bin or whatever, run back to the top to solve a puzzle where the men and women, no matter whether they are a vet or a rookie, are playing alone, but the last man and woman newbie are booted from the season. I actually do really enjoy this challenge, but Stefan and Polly went overall out of their gender, which is ironic since they will later be purged together, and while Big Brother gets a win with that, they also do lose with Josh and Liz. They made Liz and Julia dye their hair completely different colors, with Liz being dirty blonde and Julia being platinum blonde to distinguish them, but I guess it really doesn't matter. Anyways, Josh and Liz get purged. I'm going to discuss Liz at the end of the episode, and I'm not going to discuss Josh at all since he comes back at the end of the episode. Cara Maria and Polly are cringe as hell regarding their relationship, talking about where they went. They're just cringe in general this season. NCT talks about being married. Jenna apparently moved in with Zach to Michigan where he lives. The veterans gets to choose the rookies, or that's what the assumption is, of the other gender that they want to pair up with, and the results will be one that influences them regarding the decision based on who placed where in the purge. Clearly, the twins aren't happy to be separated, but the rest of the people go into the house. Cara Maria and Polly are walking around the house, chanting about where they are going to have sex, and I just felt nauseated from this. It seems like Devon and Cam are working together since they're talking about how they need to align with the UK players since they have a lot of numbers, and Cam is leaning towards Theo and Ashley, while Devon is thinking of Bear, who won Big Brother UK and he is loud as shit, where she ignores that will eventually be a problem. Nanny is eyeing Chase as a showman's partner since she just got out of a relationship, and we see Morgan and Bananas gravitating to one another. Hunter and Georgia are talking about last season, and Ashley mentions that to Turbo that she doesn't regret the choice at all. Yura and Cam talk about their up and down showmans since vendettas, though they fell out during the summer, and this is the first time that they are speaking after 4 months. But it's awkward between them. Theo likes Cam, and I'm honestly shocked that he likes a black woman based on what he has said on his social media since, but I'll just leave that alone for now. And the vets are teasing Nanny, where she is sitting slash grinding on Johnny, and Chase is getting annoyed with it. Chase is lecturing Nanny since they apparently kissed 5 minutes before, and all of the veterans are clowning him, but this isn't The Bachelor. Or because this isn't The Bachelor. Ashley and Theo are arguing since she speaks like Eminem's mom in 8th Mile, which she takes very personally. Ashley calls him an idiot, and she has a huge meltdown, which is the usual for her. And she says that she will partner with him just to throw everything so they can go home first, since she is rich! And she's that petty. Ashley wants to beat his ass, and Theo is literally just trolling her. Everyone meets outside, where the vets think that they get to choose their partner, but it's the rookies who end up getting to choose the vets as their partner, since they are inexperienced. Anyways, Alan is DQ'd for breaking his arm on the purge. I was expecting Liz to perform a lot better on the purge since she was good in Big Brother competitions, but I guess it's a prime example of just because you thrive on one show's competitions, it doesn't mean that you will do so on another show. And I was hoping that she did well because at least she was one of the rookies that I recognized, but yes, I guess it's for the best. So, regarding Alon, it sucks that he got DQ'd while getting fourth place in the purge, but he didn't really do anything on the show, and even if he did last, I doubt he would have offered anything to the show, just like a few of the other rookies who didn't really know anyone. I do remember the cast shaming him for his choreography on social media and on the press run, which was obviously done after the season filmed, and they knew nothing else about him, but they read spoilers. Natalie picks Polly, Ashley picks Cam, Morgan picks Bananas, Bear picks Devon, Georgia picks Hunter, Thea picks Carmaria, Julia picks CT, Tara picks Nani, Dee picks Wes, and she thinks he has no enemies, which is just funny. JP picks Natalie, Maddie picks Kyle, she thinks he is hot, which we will see more of in the season. Chase picks Ashley, Shalene picks Leroy, Zahida is with Zach, Gus picks Jenna. She's glad that she doesn't have to deal with accents, and Amanda has no one, but she will get Josh, who was brought back after literally a few hours, which, lucky for him. Of course, Josh is thrilled to be in the house, and I noticed that he hugged Devon and Polly first, though Carmaria still hates Amanda over wishing for her death. Georgia and Hunter want to get back at Ashley, and Hunter mentions that he goes under the radar, where Wes will do all the politicking for him, where the two men confirm that they pre-gamed before the season. And aside from that, they're actually adding stuff like pre-gaming onto the actual episodes. Nani and Turbo are on good terms, and she feels confident with him since he won two Survivor seasons, and she finally wants a win. Arms Again Pride is the daily where they have to pull a 400-foot rope across their opponents, where the vets who did the best choose their opponents. So the vets who did the best on the perch choose their opponents, but it's in the middle of a car where the car is where it will get crushed, and that's where TJ and the producers will measure the amount of rope pulled. Where the top three teams form the tribunal, where they are safe from elimination, but also choose people to nominate for elimination, where one will go into the elimination. I do like this daily as it is a mix of endurance and physicality. The people in the tribunal are Carmaria and Theo, Bananas and Morgan, and Amanda and Josh, where they have to nominate three teams and choose one of them to face elimination. Amanda wants to protect Hunter and Ashley, but Carmaria and Bananas are steamrolling her in the deliberation, where Bananas mentions that Hunter said at the reunion that he's going after her, which Hunter did say, and Ashley has screwed her over in the last several seasons, which he isn't lying. And she nominates Zach due to their beef last season. Zach and Zahida, Hunter and Georgia, and Ashley and Chase are all nominated. The three nominated teams have to then speak to the tribunal to campaign for them to be saved. Ashley throws Hunter under the bus. Hunter mentions that he is not with his allies this season as they aren't here, but Bananas has not forgotten how Hunter and his allies treated him last season and followed him in a room to harass him. And Zach is shockingly letting Zahida do all the speaking. Hunter and Wes are talking about if he goes, that Hunter needs to choose Leroy to go in, and Leroy hears all of them speaking about sending him in, which you will definitely remember for later. Amanda speaks to Morgan about being under Bananas' shadow, and she's confronting Morgan, and Bananas grabs a hanger to perform an exorcism to get rid of Amanda the Satan, where he has a "Not Today, Satan" shirt, and somehow this ends up with Hunter and Bananas arguing about how he beat him last season in the way that Hunter always says it. For some reason, actually not for some reason, it's because Hunter was trying to get Leroy out. That was the reason. Leroy needs to play security guard for Bananas and mentions that he should have bigger beef with Ashley, who stole money from him last season. So the two of them are fighting, and Hunter has to be pulled back from fighting Leroy. Amanda and Hunter then end up arguing because she's defending him, and he attacks her for some reason. Man, Hunter really isn't smart. This somehow ends up with Amanda and Jenna arguing, where Jenna is tired of Amanda's antics with threatening to drop a bomb at the reunion. Amanda mentions that Zach was on a Bumble app when they were eliminated last season. Zach mentions that she's a liar. Amanda tries to bring Devon into it for a reference. Devon wants absolutely nothing to do with it, and I don't blame her. Zach does mention that he was on the app, but he didn't swipe anything. Zach speaks to Zach Jenna speaks to Zach about what they were told, and he storms off, where she follows him, and they're arguing where he wants out. She is tired of him shunning her out, and he's begging for security to get her. And he essentially mentions that they are over after the season is done, since it's blown way out of proportion. Jenna is tired of being embarrassed by him, but she doesn't want to break up with him. Their dynamic is so toxic, which is why they agreed to not do a season together after this. Anyways, they go to the killing floor where the eliminations will be played this season. The tribunal nominates Hunter and Georgia, where they can choose their opponents, which is Ashley and Chase. Of course, everyone is hyping up the elimination match, and they play drone ball drop, where a ball will be dropped from 30 feet in the air, and they have to do anything to get to the ball and put it in the net out of 3 rounds. But there's also no redemption this season, so once you're gone, you're gone. Georgia and Hunter end up beating Ashley and Chase. Ashley obviously didn't get a whole lot to do on the season, though her fight with Theo, seemingly on the first night, is pretty funny. And this will be the start of us seeing how inconsistent Ashley is in the game, since there are seasons where she does well and just as many seasons where she's out very early. Chase was an outright dud though. He had that flirtation with Nanny, then shut it down due to her behavior, and then got sent home. Not shocked that he never came back for another season. Jay explains that whomever wins the elimination gets the relic, where they are safe for the next round, and I wish that they kept this around for future seasons. Bear is speaking to Georgia, and they are really feeling one another. Honestly, this is aged horribly with the things that happened between them after the show. And it seems like Bananas is trying to hook them up. Bananas is still loyal to Leroy, Zach, and Kyle, and hopes that they can deal with the UK people, where we learn that Kyle and his partner, Maddie, are feeling one another, and they were caught making up with one another. Maria speaks to Maddie, and Cam tells her to calm her ass down, where Maria gives her a warning about Cal. Maddie tells Cal that she really just doesn't give a shit about his past, and Cam is here for this new coupling and partnership. Zach is talking about how he is not in the game mentally, and we'll get more into this later. The daily is Search and Destroy, where they have to go through the graveyard to grab a ball and pass it to the partner, but there are 3 less balls in every round, so people are going to be physically fighting for the ball in the mud, as 3 of them will be eliminated each run. I really do enjoy this daily, and it showed that everyone had to hold their own physically and strategically, and I feel like we see this challenge in some form every single season. You clearly see women like Cam and Ninja tackling Morgan down, so there's some strategy, most likely between Cam and Polly, to gang up on Bananas and Morgan. Zach throws the final ball to Wes, which Bananas thinks is very sketchy, and that Zach is playing both sides. The top 3 pairs are Polly and Ninja, Wes and Dee, and Ashley and Cam. Clearly, it was very clear that the majority of the house spoke to one another beforehand to get Bananas and Morgan out, and Bananas realizes this as well. The tribunal ends up nominating Cal and Maddie, Bananas and Morgan, and Amanda and Josh. Amanda is shocked since no one hates her in the tribunal, but I guess Cam and Ashley wasted their vote, which she later admits. Morgan and Bananas talk about how Wes and Dee clearly orchestrated this, where Bananas calls it out during the interrogation. Polly and Cal continue their mess, but it's actually pretty calm this time, which will kind of hint that things weren't as tense between them this season, but we'll get into it later. Cam and Amanda speak about how it is a burn vote, but Amanda mentions that if she goes down, she will go down swinging, but Cam is not threatened with Amanda's supposed threat whatsoever. Maddie is annoyed that she's dragged into Polly and Kyle's mess, and she'll be nominated every time due to it. Zach and Jenna talk about his move in the challenge, and he made a dumb move where he feels like he's always in the middle of Wes and Johnny, going back to Exes 2. Josh and Amanda are arguing about her causing drama for no reason, and Devon is just laughing at their bullshit. And they mention that no one likes the other, and she tells him, "Welcome to the game, bitch," and he's just over it. Johnny Bananas calls out Wes for getting Zach to pass him the ball before the challenge. Zach mentions that his mind is not here because people are attacking his relationship. Apparently, he needed an agreement to throw the elimination if he was voted in against any of them, since he supposedly had some wedding to attend anyways. Johnny and Morgan are voted into elimination after a stalemate, where Ashley changed his vote. The context I mentioned above is why Bananas ended up choosing Zach to go into elimination, where they play Map It Up, where they have to match the flags onto some large map, and their partner has to place where the country is on the map. I would do so well in this elimination. Anyways, that's just besides the point. A lot of people are helping Zach and Sahida in the elimination, but Cal is cheering for bananas, which Maria notices and will remember for later. But Zach and Sahida win the elimination, sending Morgan and Bananas home. I think this is the earliest Bananas has left since his very first season, all the way back to the duel. But we had the same thing with him going after West, which was pretty odd, but I'm glad it didn't last long this season, though he'll drag out the Zach thing throughout the reunion. Morgan seems like she was good at the challenges, and I wouldn't have minded her coming back, but she got into a relationship with Bananas where he didn't want her to come back on the show. Then she was over it, where they apparently had a very bad breakup, where she's been shading him online consistently over the last few months as I'm recording this. CT realizes that the writing is on the wall, with a lot of the legends going home, and Janet tells Zach that Kyle was cheering for Johnny, or at least that's what she was told by Maria, who heard it. Zach asks Cal about this, and Cal talks about how Carmaria just wants him to have no alliances or friends, and Zach is worried about his association with Cal, especially if Kara and Polly remain to have power. The daily is Fallout, where they are on a steep structure 100 feet above the water, where one person will have to jump on the beam and to ring the bell, where their partner will be controlling the beam up top. This daily was fine enough, I guess. Potty and Ninja, Hunter and Georgia, and Turbo and Nani are in the tribunal, and TG announces that it is a double elimination. I have no idea why they decided to do a double elimination here. They could have dragged out the pairs format for at least another episode if they hadn't done this. Of course, Polly and Ninja throw in Cal and Maddie, and Hunter is obsessed with Josh voting him in as a burn vote, so he'll throw Amanda under the bus despite them being friends. And he admits that it's a petty ass move, but at least he's self aware instead of delusional. Nani mentions that she wants to go against a UK team, but the third nominee ends up being CT and Julia, and she's claiming that it's because she doesn't know where CT lies. Amanda is very pissed off that Hunter nominated her, and CT is shocked that Nani and Turbo nominating him, though she mentions that she isn't going to let him skate by to the end. That is a good reason, to be honest. CT says that he has no alliances, which Nani really doesn't believe, which is fair. Cal and Polly continue their stance where Polly mentions that it is not about Kara. Cal mentions that he can't fuck her. The way Cal words things is so funny sometimes. Polly mentions that Maddie is the only thing impressive about their partnership. Cal dares him to say to his face. Polly steps down and kneels up because Polly's a lot shorter than Cal, so he has to kneel up to his face. They do their hunger dance, and the two of them are separated. Hunter and Amanda are yelling at one another from his or for his dumbass move. Josh tells Hunter that he's an idiot. He just says, "You're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome," over and over and over again. And Amanda is glad to be friends with a millionaire, bitch. Though I'm sure Ashley gave her none of that money, though. Kyle is complaining to Zach, and the latter mentions that Carmaria still likes him since she is so bothered by Kyle, and Carmaria is Jack Sparrow compared to Polly's ex. Yikes. But that's what Polly likes. Carmelia hears the entire thing, and she's shocked because Zack is her friend. And she talks about it to Polly and CT, where she loves Polly and is the happiest she's ever been. Natalie is supportive of the couple, and this is the first time we hear of her the entire season, and everyone is wearing costumes. Cal is campaigning to Georgia, and also mentions that if she throws it in, he will go after her next season. Polly goes after Cal because it turns Carmelia on. I'm pretty sure it turns Polly on, but that's a whole nother discussion. They do their face rubbing tactics once again while Cal is wearing a skirt, which just makes it even funnier. Polly is getting hyped and riled up by security, getting trying to get around them 3 times, and he has to be held outside, where he didn't like how Cal was handling Georgia in the conversation, which is fair. Cam is flirting with Theo, and she doesn't care about how Leroy feels about it, and he is bothered by it for sure. We get to the elimination where Cal and Maddie are nominated, and he wants to hurt Polly the most. But he won't choose Carmilla despite the history, so he chooses Natalie and JP, where she calls Cal a bully for choosing her, though apparently Natalie said in the post-season that she was actually referring to Zach about a lot of her commentary here and in the confessionals, but they edited it weirdly. Polly mentions that he can handle Kyle himself. I'm completely over the situation. And Natalie and JP gets to choose another team, where JP chooses CT and Julia, which shocks everyone. And CT is very pissed off and is taking it very personally, which just shows how entitled he is. And the veteran entitlement is just annoying. And everyone clowns JP for it. Anyways, the elimination is ring tossed, where we have seen this several times, but it's three people playing at once, and depending on how the elimination takes place, a new team can be formed, but one person needs to get two rings. Julia and Natalie absolutely had no chance against Maddie, and so shocked her where she eliminated the two of them, and she just dragging them across the field. Things are a bit more interesting with the guys round, where JP solely focuses on CT, and despite Natalie chanting for Cal to lose, Cal does end up getting it due to the other's mistakes. Essentially, Polly's plan completely backfired, and CT is snapping at JP for his move, where we learn that Turbo and JP are apparently friends, so they're showing this after he's eliminated. Whatever. Despite four people going home this episode, I don't really have much to say about any of them. CT thought that him being an OG vet would cause him to skate by easier, and he got his wake up call with JP, but it did prepare him well for the next season and the future in general to be more prepared. Julia didn't do much on Big Brother 17, so I'm not shocked she didn't do much here, and she had the chance to become notable without her sister, but didn't do it. Though apparently she did have some hookup with Hunter. I'm fine with her being a one and done, but I will admit that she and CT got fucked over here, where they probably would have made it a decent enough way after this had this not happened, since she was apparently close with Ninja and D, but they didn't show that. JP didn't get any camera time until his comments with CT, and props to him for making the move, though it was dumb as hell. He himself wasn't interesting at all, so him never coming back isn't shocking, and he apparently struggled with English, and this will be a thing that they do in the future with testing people who struggle with English, which makes no sense. Natalie had a very disappointing season, and it's weird that she got no confessional or screen time until her boot episode, so they clearly went out of their way to get her, or to give her no edit. Apparently, she sprayed glitter all over Zach's bed, causing him to go to the hospital, and production was mad, but her time on the show ending like this is just disappointing. There's a lot of talk about out with the old and in with the new, with CT, Bananas, and Ashley, who isn't that old herself, at least when it comes to joining the show, going home. And since Polly cannot target Kyle this round, they are going to target his allies, and it immediately pans to Zach and Leroy. Leroy is sad to see his friend go, and Nanny has to explain things about the. Wait, whoa, wrong person. Turbo is sad to see his friend go, so I'm pretty sure Leroy was sad to see CT go, since they do have a friendship of some sorts. And Nanny has to explain things about the political and social elements to Turbo more. Tired Out is the daily where the pairs are chained together, then they have to look at a color code, where they have to place the colored tires in that order, and they are doing it 14 times. Devon and Bear are not getting along at all during the challenge, and Hunter's lack of endurance is pissing Georgia off, where they're starting to bicker at one another. Anyways, I really do like the daily, as it's simple but effective enough as well, which is something that the challenge tends to forget about in future seasons. Bear literally quits the daily, which is just pathetic as hell, and she calls him an idiot, where she continues the challenge on her own. Polly and Natalie, Nanny and Turbo, and Carmine and Theo win the challenge and make up the tribunal. Bear continues to freak out, and Devon is being cheered up by Cam, where their final confessional between the pair after the challenge is so awkward and tense. Of course, the couple are so happy that they're in the tribunal together, where Carmaria and Polly want Zack out, and Theo doesn't want that, since he wants to heat it in the house, since she is in his alliance. Gus and Jenna and Devon and Bear are seemingly burn votes, but they are all nominated, and Jenna thinks that she is nominated due to her relationship with Zack. Zack refuses to campaign to the tribunal, and Carmaria calls him out for trashing her, despite them being friends, and she calls him out for making Jenna cry. He says that it isn't about her, where they continue to just go back and forth. Bear and Ninja end up arguing somehow. Ninja calls out Bear for his poor sportsmanship. He makes fun of her fashion, which is just so random in this context, which somehow leads to Nanny and Bear arguing as he accuses her of flirting with him, and Devon tells him to just shut up. Carmaria calls him out for picking fights with every single woman in the room, and he leaves. Nanny apologizes to Devon for nominating Curdy to Bear, and she tells them that Polly and Carmaria know why she is there and what she is fighting for, clearly in reference to her daughter. Zach, being as petty as he is, goes on a rant about Cara Maria and Polly, where he mentions that she's as fake as her hair, she is a pathetic loser, Polly is effing her followers, and she's mentioning Kyle as Polly is having sex with her, and she's being carried. Sorry, yeah, he's saying that she's being carried by an Olympian, i.e., Theo, and Zach had her back for years, which Amanda is seemingly agreeing with, and Kyle is laughing at all of this. Zahida is bonding with Maddie and is sick of Zach's drama bringing her down. Bear runs up on the pool room where everyone's just playing room and hanging out to lay himself on it, where a lot of them are playing cards, and Kala is intentionally winding Bear up so Bear can get nominated instead of him. Devon and Bear have a conversation where she is tired of his antics, and he says that if they are nominated, she will nominate Jenna and Dex. He mentions Amanda and Josh, though she doesn't care if they nominate Wes and D. Zach and Zahida talk about who they will nominate, where she mentions Wes and D. He mentions that not Jose, my bad, Bear and Devon are easier beats. Amanda and Josh really aren't a consideration, despite them being weak, due to them not working with Polly and Maria, which pretty much states that the other two are. Zach and Fajita are nominated, where Maria mentions how he is a misogynist who makes his girlfriend cry, and he is jealous of a healthy relationship, which is ironic since Polly was two-timing his ex-girlfriend at the time. Zach wants Devon and Bear to be opponents, but Zahida will piss off a lot of the house. Really, she's allies with Bear, and Devon is associated with Polly, so they throw in Wes and D. People think that it is dumb since he is known as the Elimination King, and Zach knows that Wes is working with the couple. Wes and D are annoyed that they are nominated where the elimination is lights out, where they start at the light switches, but when the lights are off, they have to solve the puzzle and turn the light on, so whomever fixes the puzzle will win. The elimination is fine enough, but Wes and D beats Zach and Zahida. And Polly pokes at Kyle to say goodbye to his friend, where they are kind of going back and forth as they are watching the elimination. Zach is a drama queen, where he called security on his own girlfriend because Amanda outed him for being on Bumble. He was supposed to throw the elimination to bananas, but didn't, pissing off other people, and then he went on a warpath against Carmia, all because she was with Polly, and he read the hell out of their relationship, but he wasn't boring. Zahida unfortunately was, and didn't have much to do. I don't know if they edited out her stuff, but there's nothing to talk about. Hunter talks about how a challenge winner has went home every single week, and West thinks that he is the best out of the best, so everyone is gathering to get out to the UK Alliance, and Leroy is wondering if he is next. Bear is talking to Nanny about how she would be his first choice, and he wants a lot of girlfriends, but she does not believe any of this at all, and is just not interested. Wes is watching all this take place and knows that he can use this to his advantage. Cam and Theo are talking, and they are flirting about whether she is the queen or king, and Leroy is jealous watching them, and Theo wants to see her naked. Cam is single and is definitely enjoying this, since she wanted to be with Leroy in the past, but he ultimately chose not to get with her. Doom Buggy is a daily where they have to go across tire to tire, letting go of one or the tire that you just crossed while the monster truck is driving them. So whomever lets go of the most tires wins. And I really do like this daily a lot, as it is yet another simple but effective one. The top three in the tribunal are Hunter and Georgia, West and D, and Theo and Cara Maria, with Cal and Maddie also being tied for the third spot with Theo and Maria, if I'm remembering this correctly. But Cal and Maddie end up getting that third spot into the tribunal by 30 seconds. Kyle immediately nominates Polly and Ninja, and Hunter and Georgia argue about it, but Wes and Dee do nominate Bear and Avon, and Wes tells Georgia that Bear is more sexually attracted to Nani than her. And at least she realizes that Wes is telling her this conveniently at this moment instead of any other time where he's trying to sway her into something. Anyways, Josh and Amanda end up being third nominee, but as a burn vote. Georgia is sad about what she was told, and Hunter does confront her. Or comfort her, my bad. Where Devon asks Georgia what happened, and she's told the truth. Devon tells her partner that Georgia was told that he's more attracted to Nanny, and he needs to figure this shit out. Preferably post-filming when they are not partners anymore, but game-wise, Now, but the other stuff post filming. Bear and Georgia make up, but Bear has it out for Wes now. Polly and Kyle are joking about their fate. Josh and Amanda are annoyed about being the brown vote. And Bear calls out Wes for being a dirty, stinky rat, and he's going to target them if he comes back, and they leave immediately after that. The cast goes to the club, and Cam is cuddling with Theo, where Leroy does speak to her. He wants to go back to where they were when they first met, but he made it clear that he doesn't want to be in a relationship, but they can just be cordial. Hunter and Nanny are getting close and are having fun with one another at the club, and Leroy is pressed and bothered about seeing Cam and Theo kiss. Nanny tells him to calm down and to not let it get to him, where Nanny claims that Cam is doing it for game purposes, since Leroy has done poorly on the challenges this season while Theo has thrived in them. When they get back to the club, the future engaged couple argue about her making a fool out of him, supposedly, and she is tired of him making a scene. Leroy complains about it to a few others, and Shady knows that her partner really isn't focused. Wes tells Amanda and Josh that Bear and Devon are most likely going to be chosen, so Josh doesn't have to worry about nominating anyone. And obviously, he's working with Big Brother. And I believe it's around here where he says that Devon and Polly are his best friends. Remember the Polly stuff for next season. We're gonna get there, I promise you. Devon and Bear are nominated, and they choose to go against Leroy and Shailene as their opponents. As he suggested Josh and Amanda first, Bear suggested this, but Devon immediately shut that down, since they're her friends, and she's protecting them. The elimination is Sandbag Burn, where there is a sled, and they have to pull the sled to put 40 sandbags from their side to their partner, and it's essentially a long endurance elimination. And I do like it, but it would definitely be tiring to do. But Bear and Devon do win against Leroy and Shailene. Bear and West are yelling at one another after the elimination takes place, so it's clear that they are going after one another. It was interesting seeing Leroy and Cam's history here, and Leroy was actually pressed and bothered about something, but this would be one of the rare seasons at this point where he goes home early. I'm sure the producers regretted hiding their relationship on vendettas. Anyway, Shalene was a weird casting choice since she was from an episode of Bachelor Canada and she got an invisible edit and didn't do much of anything, so I really have nothing to say about her. Anyways, this is definitely one of Leroy's weaker seasons on a performance level as well. West and D are not thrilled with the elimination result, and of course, Bear is going to be a poor loser and sport about it to West. The UK Alliance, which is Bear, Ashley, Theo, and Georgia, agreed to go after West, but Bear now wants to go after Polly for winning so much, which will be an issue with his partner this episode, though the other side knows that the UK people are together. Kyle makes it clear that he isn't a part of the UK team and mentions that the UK sucks, though he's doing it as a joke, despite him obviously being from the UK. But luckily for him, they consider him more Team US due to being a vet. Josh and Amanda are on the bunk bed and he is trying to flirt with her, and she is so not interested whatsoever, but they're kind of joking with one another about it anyways. The daily is Eye in the Sky, where the partners are tied to one another on their backs and they are walking blindfolded while their partner guides them through the course above the air by their partner. It's a fine enough daily, but it's not one that really stands out to me in either direction. Bear is trying to distract Carly and Ninja, which obviously is going to piss off Cara Maria while they are doing the challenge. Dee and Wes and kind of Cara Maria give Bear a taste of his own medicine when it's his and Devon's turn. Despite this, Bear and Devon, Wes and Dee, and Gus and Jenna all get into the tribunal here. Gus and Jenna nominate Amanda and Josh. Devon is burning on Nanny and Turbo, but Bear is insistent on nominating Polly and Ninja, and they are arguing about it, and she is bawling her eyes out because she is tired of her friends having to go in and sacrifice themselves while Bear doesn't compromise at all. And Cam and Ashley are the third nominee. The pair continue to go back and forth as she mentions that he chose the opponents during the last elimination, and it's not fair for her friends to keep being nominated. And honestly, Devon should have chosen a different partner. I kind of blame her in the sense that she chose a clearly bad partner that isn't compatible with her. and he doesn't care whatsoever about what she thinks. And he's targeting a couple who is protecting him through her. It really just makes no sense. The nominees are revealed, and Polly is rightfully shocked, and Devon is in utter tears. Amanda knows that Jenna and Gus made a completely personal move with them nominating her, where they are one of the weaker teams left. She's referring to herself and Josh. Dee tells Polly that Bear went all over Devon, kind of railroaded her, and Polly mentions that it is a dumb move, since him protecting Devon meant protecting Bear. But Bear doesn't listen to logic, and it just kind of just shows how poor of a game player he really is. But obviously, Polly feels like he can't trust Devon as much anymore. This was kind of a theme throughout the season, which I'll get into later. And that's obviously the case because he's with his girlfriend, and Devon's not going to be prioritized over his own girlfriend, and she felt away. Clearly! So Ashley's getting annoyed with Josh, and Cam refuses to kick his ass in the deliberation. Amanda and Josh, sorry, I think Cam refuses to kiss Josh's ass in the deliberation. That's what I meant to say. Amanda and Josh ask why Gus and Jenna didn't nominate Maria and Theo, since that is who Zach wanted out before he left. Polly mentions the logic yet again to Bear, but he really just didn't give a shit at all. They all go to the club where Hunter and Nanny and Cal and Maddie are making out with one another, and Cam and Theo are getting closer. Nanny is trying to get Jenna and Amanda to make amends, since none of them are in the UK alliance and they all need one another, which is smart on Nanny's part. And Amanda she mentioned that Maria is also with Team UK, since she's partnered with Theo. So Jenna should have went that direction, though Jenna thinks that it's convenient that she is saying this now, and to be fair, that is true. Ashley is not here for Josh and Amanda campaigning against the Brits, which he calls out Amanda about, and Josh defends his partner, and honestly, good for him. And he demands respect for Amanda. Josh says that they can go head to head, and Ashley is literally laughing at this while he is throwing Josh's stuff across the room, and Josh is being held back by security. To be honest, I really don't know what Ashley is saying when he's going back and forth with Josh. Josh is very pissed off that his stuff is tampered with, which I understand, and we move to the elimination, where Bear is shocked that Devon doesn't vote in Polly and Natalie. I don't know why he would be shocked about this, but it just shows how dense Bear is. And I do have to point in that there is no mention of bullying or whatever when Ashley threw Josh's stuff out, like they did with Kaylee 2 seasons ago, so I found that to be interesting. Anyways, Wes and Dee vote in Josh and Amanda, despite neither one of them being Team UK. And Wes mentions that he is doing this to blame it on Jenna's personal vendetta, but I really don't get this move and he doesn't explain it well at all. Josh and Amanda choose Cam and Ashley as their opponents, where they compete in uphill battle, where they have to climb ladders holding a ball, but they cannot fall. Supposedly, they were not allowed to pin their backs against one another to climb it, but Cam and Ashley were allowed to do so. Because of this, Ashley and Cam beat Josh and Amanda in the elimination, and they're getting for Wes and Davon now. Josh shockingly did not annoy me much in the season, but it's probably because there are many other bigger personalities, and he didn't have any power this season, but that will soon change in future seasons. Seeing everyone call Amanda the devil was pretty fun, and her having no numbers this season at all, but the Jack and Xena drama continued here, though she'll run it to the ground on social media, even when neither of them are on the show anymore. Josh and Amanda were a humorous pair this season with just their dynamics overall. Of course, the UK alliance is happy, and the other side is hiding in their rooms. Bear and Georgia are hooking up on the counters and all of that, and we see Wes teaching Dee how to swim, where she told him about how she can't swim as soon as they are paired up together, and we see progress where she almost drowned when she was 14, and it scarred her from swimming. Bear speaks to his girlfriend through their weekly phone calls, and Georgia and Carmaria overhear this call from the wall, and Georgia walks in the phone call room where his girlfriend sees her. Georgia ends up ranting and raving to everyone in the house, and he has to face the music, where he tells her that he was speaking to his cousin. He's insistent on lying, but she throws her water on him, and she should have stayed very clear of him after this, knowing what will happen between the two of them in real life. The women, including Bear's own partner, comforts her, and Bear insists that whomever he calls is his business. We move on to the daily, which is Brain Freeze, where they need to run 100 yards into the sea, grab a puzzle piece of their designated color, and build the puzzle once they have all the pieces. It's a solid enough daily, and the water is cold as hell, making it even harder. Wes and Dee, Nanny and Turbo, and Carmaria and Theo end up in the tribunal. Wes chants that Bear needs to pack his bags in front of everyone, so they're clearly going in. Carmaria takes Cal and Maddie off the wall, and Nanny and Turbo choose Hunter and Georgia as a burn vote, so the nominations go very smoothly. Hunter and Georgia make sure that they don't get voted in. Cal and Carmaria have their, I don't know if banter is the word I want to use, and Bear tells Wes to go out of the room. Sorry, Wes tells Bear to get out of the room. He is shoving him out. They're puffing dishes against one another, and it's all kind of just performative, in my opinion. Everyone is at the club, and Nani likes Hunter's stripper dancing, where Bear and Devon are talking about throwing in Hunter and Georgia, though he is lying, and he calls Hunter a bitch, and he's not scared of him. And Hunter is a hothead, so he's getting pissed off, and Bear mentions that he's much better looking than him. Hunter wants to go against him in elimination, and Georgia calls Hunter a dickhead, so he is yelling at her since her boo attacked him, and he tells her to suck another dick. Hunter wants to beat Bear's ass, and Wes is calming him down, and we move on to Nanny and Hunter having fun in their bed. I can only guess what's happening there. Bear is able to get Georgia back into his good graces. Sorry, he's able to get into her good graces, and we have Hunter apologizing to Georgia. To be fair, she did attack him first, but he doesn't apologize for giving her tough love. So essentially, it really isn't an apology. But he says that her business with Bear is her business, and they end up arguing as he is leaving, and it's carried outside of the house, so the conversation accomplished absolutely nothing. Onto the elimination, Bear and Devon are obviously nominated, with Nanny flipping with Wes, and they choose to go against Jenna and Gus, as they are all the same size, and Gus calls Bear a cussing motherfucker. Push and pull is the elimination, where it's essentially a pole wrestle, and both of them are the same size, so it's the most sensical elimination choice. Wes tells Jenna to knee Devon's face, which Devon will remember with Wes in the future. Anyways, Bear and Devon do beat up Jenna and Gus. Jenna yet again has a season that is filled with drama involving Zach, where he had suspicious activity last season and then it carried on to Amanda. The two of them agreed to never do another season together after this to protect their relationship, which is more than fine with me, but both of them are winding down on their show, with one more season for each of them after this anyways. Gus was such a big fish on his small Floribama Shore show, Pond, but when he moved over to this show, he was a small fish and he was mute. The only thing he did was call Bear a cousin kissing fucker and picking on Josh to fail to get a callback, but he was quiet as fuck on the season. Bear and Davon are thrilled with their elimination win, and we have Polly and Carmaria having sex very loudly, where people outside of the house, where most of the cast are, can hear them. Natalie mentions that she has not bonded with Polly at all, due to Carmaria always being with him, and a few other people mention this about Polly throughout the season. And Dee mentions that she's very close to Wes. Cal is over the Polly and Carmaria stuff, and Maddie asks him if he is alright, where he states that he actually isn't alright, since he feels like an outcast and he hasn't been his fun, loving self, and he has no other allies in the gang. Cam and Ashley know that they are going to be thrown in if they don't win the daily, and she wants to bring her grandmother from Jamaica to live in the United States, and they know that West Indy will throw them in, so they need to take that first shot if they have that chance. Hunter is speaking to Wes about Georgia being influenced by Bear, and Hunter asks Georgia to have a couples therapy with him, with Wes, of course, leading it. Hunter gives a sincere apology to Georgia, and she does forgive him, though it turns out that it wasn't sincere, but he gave a good acting speech. The daily is Red Warrior, where they have to start on opposite trucks that is going fast, where they have to pass circles to their partner while the trucks are driving. Ninja yet again mentions how she hasn't bonded with her partner, so they're clearly setting them up to go in here since it hasn't come up in any other episode. And it shows, according to her, since they stopped winning a lot of the dailies as of late. Kyle and Maddie do well in the challenge. We don't know yet if they're in the tribunal, but right after their performance, he yells that Cara Maria and Polly are going to go in. Bear chants, "Losers!" to Wes and Dee after they lose, and Wes would kick his ass if they weren't on the show, or at least that's what Wes is telling him. And Dee calls Bear out about being also a loser, where they didn't make fun of him for flopping several times throughout the season. Devon mentions that they're being hypocrites because Wes was chanting for Jenna to put her knee in her face during the last elimination, so she thinks what Bear is doing is fine. And she says that, Wes says that he did it because they sucked out of their elimination rings. Devon mentions that she'll make sure a knee is on his rib after the season. Wes says something about her motherhood and not setting a good example, but she doesn't let it bother her, like she did with Polly all the way back in Big Brother 18. Kyle and Maddie, Hunter and Georgia, and Cara Maria and Theo all make it to the tribunal, and Kyle is going to make sure that Polly goes home. His nominee is done, obviously, where Hunter and Georgia nominates Tara and Nanny as a burn vote, which is a thing with those two pairs, and Cara Maria thinks that it is odd, since Hunter is sleeping with Nanny, but she ends up nominating Wes and Dee. Everyone is willing to go to a tie over this, and Theo asks Kyle if he's working with Wes, which Kyle denies, and Cara Maria thinks that it's dumb to ask, since Kyle is just a huge liar. Wes says that he is only working with Hunter and Georgia, and he does not want to go in. Theo continues asking people who they are working with, and none of the nominees really give him anything, so it's essentially just a waste of time. Wes and Polly speak to one another about the real deliberation, and all of them want to stay out of the deliberation. But what people are getting from this is that Polly is trying to hint that he wants to scare Wes if he is chosen. She's trying to kind of intimidate Wes by saying he could choose him if he, i.e. Polly, is chosen to go into elimination. Dee and Natalie are talking about how they might have to go against one another, but Dee doesn't trust Polly and doesn't want to have to rely on him. And she doesn't see why he wants them to go against one another. Nanny really likes Hunter, but doesn't want to have to rely on him, since it's failed for her in the past, and Hunter is playing a scared game, where he's insistent on going into a tie with this, though he thinks he's pulling a West with this. The tribunal votes for the first time, where it is a tie, but Georgia ends up flipping her votes to Polly and Natalie to avoid the tribunal getting in danger of being sent in themselves. Polly and Ninja go back and forth on who to choose for the opponents, where Polly wants to choose Wes and Dee, but Ninja is insistent on not choosing them, where they end up choosing Cam and Ashley. The elimination is Wheel of Death, where one partner will be attached to the wheel while it's spinning, where the partner is building the puzzle blindfolded, where the spinning partner has to guide the blindfolded partner what piece to put and where to put it, and how, because there are different sides of the puzzle, sometimes they have to tell them to switch it clockwise or counterclockwise, stuff like that. I do think it's a good elimination, but the throwing up stuff was just really, really, really gross. But Polly and Ninja do beat Cam and Ashley here. Of course, Polly is feeling like he's going after everyone but Cara Maria, and he says, you, as the people he's going after, and he's mainly pointing at Wes, Hunter, and Cal, and he's very cocky as hell. TJ announces that the pairs are done and there are no more relics in the season. Cam definitely has her least notable season here, though she's still pretty relevant, and I think this is the earliest she's ever gotten booted on the show. And no, I'm not including Champs vs. Stars. We did see the history of her and Leroy here for the first time, which I did find interesting, but her romance with Theo was kind of just there overall. I remember a lot of people hyping up Ashley before the season, during the season, and after the season, and he was okay. He did have some beef with Josh and was an okay competitor, but I don't know if it's because I can't understand him much, but I was fine with him not coming back. I do feel bad for him with what happened to his family, and no one deserves that. Everyone is thrilled that it's an individual game now, and Polly is not over Wes, Hunter, and Cal plotting to send him home, so he is after the three of them, and recruited Turbo into his alliance with Cara Maria. Cal is not happy that the partners are gone, since it's all the women were scared of Maddie, and that protected him, and Vera and Theo wants to go after Hunter and Wes. Devon's alliance is herself and Jesus, according to her. Pandemonium is the first individual daily where they have to go through a tank to grab a bunch of large ass balls that has a fan blowing in their direction to deter them from putting it into a tank. but they have to put it into a bin. And this is a pretty cool daily, but we do have Turbo passing out, and Bear is annoying people with bragging about how well he's done, and he continues even more so after West performs poorly. The balls have to be transferred in the bin, which shocks Bear, realizing that he flopped, and I find that to be very funny. But Polly, Theo, and Turbo end up in the tribunal, where it is a guy's elimination. Bear now essentially realizes that he is screwed, and Georgia is trying to keep him up in good spirits. Obviously, Kyle, Hunter, and Wes are nominated since they all have the same enemies the people in the tribunal do, and there are no surprises here. Thea and Hunter end up arguing where it comes out of absolutely nowhere in the deliberation, and Hunter refuses to campaign, but he's annoyed that Turbo nominated him. But Polly shockingly tells Cal that there are bigger fish to fry than him. Cal is down on his chances since he and Polly have been after one another the entire season, but he's hoping that Wes is sent in instead of him. Everyone is chatting it up seemingly, and Hunter mentions that the only people who can handle these problems, which means anyone who can handle him in anything physical, is Turbo. But he will and still can fuck him up with a hand tied behind his back, and Hunter's really feeling himself. So Theo calls Hunter a bitch. The two of them are starting to go back and forth a bit, and Hunter mentions that he is not scared of Turbo, who tells Hunter that he cannot fuck him up. He cannot fuck him up. And Turbo is referring to himself as a him. So that's why he's saying him instead of I. The two of them are going back and forth, where the producers immediately enter to separate it. Where Turbo calls Hunter a bitch, Hunter will be in the hospital and he will go home. The two of them are continuing to argue in the bedroom, where Hunter says that Turbo is not God! You're not God, Turbo! Turbo calls Hunter a chicken, which will be his favorite insult as we will delve into his challenge career more and more. Turbo says the next morning that he will break Hunter's arm, which Wes tells Hunter, who is actually unfazed about this. This is the very first sign that Turbo is absolutely unhinged, but he got a good edit this season. Polly continues to go after Cal to keep the rivalry going, which, roll eye. But we hear Nani complaining about it. People like Devon and Amanda also mentioned that Polly and Cal actually got along this season when the cameras weren't around, but Kara wanted them to keep fighting and she would actively encourage it. Cal chooses to go against Bear, where King of the World is the elimination, where it's a multiple choice trivia where they have to grab a ball that has the answer. They did this elimination on the Gauntlet too, which was like 13 years ago at this point in time. It's a fine enough elimination, but I prefer it on the Gauntlet 2 before, for sure, but it might just be due to the location. With Kyle beating Bear, and George is bawling her eyes out on the elimination results, where he couldn't even say bye to her. Sorry, Turbo said, "You will not fuck me up! You will not fuck me up!" Instead of fucking him up. I'm assuming I said it like that just based off of how I wrote it in my script, so just ignore that part. It's really a shame that Bear is such a repugnant human being, because he was great for the challenge when it comes to casting. He's willing to hook up whenever, wherever, he can hold his own competitively, though he for sure wasn't great, and thrives on drama with a unique personality, but perfect reality TV choices tend to not be good people. He had an interesting dynamic with Devon, with both of them being huge alpha personalities, but it really is hard to watch him with Georgia now, with what he did to her in real life, but it's not shocking that he came back, since he's arguably the most notable rookie of the season. Hal enjoys Burger King with Natalie, Maddie, and Devon, which he got from winning the elimination. Natalie doesn't want to be too open about her friendship with Kyle, since Cara Maria and Polly will be mad. Wes is now targeting Georgia and Theo, since they're the last British people, and Polly is wondering why Kyle is still in the house, when he realizes that Wes is protecting him, which is true, as they're celebrating about them working together. Devon feels weird about being without Bear, and Georgia is talking a lot about the house and about Wes being a snake who's using everyone, and she misses Bear. Wes overhears them talking about him, and I think all of them were in a room. I think it was Devon, Georgia, Polly, Carmaria, and maybe someone else, but I'm not too sure about who else was in the room. But Wes essentially enters the room and approaches the group. It looks like most of the houses in the room, actually, saying that everyone he protected is still in the house and everyone that he wanted out is now out. And Polly mentions that the one person that should be out is still there. Wes calls Polly insecure, and Polly mentions that he's the most secure guy in the house. We all know this isn't true, but let's move on. And Wes is scared, or that's what Polly is claiming, where Wes calls Polly irrational and insecure, which is true. So things aren't good with the three of them right now, since Polly and Carmaria are the same person. Wes and Nanny are talking about how everyone is paranoid and fighting with one another, where she asks him how high is he on his priority list, and they have a hit or miss relationship. And Nanny realizes that she needs to stick with Wes's group. Highway to Hell is a daily where they have to solve a puzzle while they are driving some device. It's a fine daily, but not one that's going to stand out, in my opinion. The tribunal consists of Maddie, Wes, and Dee, where Devon is not thrilled with two other people in there, clearly referring to Wes and Dee. Maddie wants Cara Maria in for targeting her all season, and Dee wants to nominate Devon, since she already did it, but Wes pushes for Georgia to get nominated because she's good at endurance. Nanny speaks to Carmaria, asking if the vets are still together, where Carmaria mentions that they have to go on a case-by-case basis, where Nanny always spends time with people who are against her, i.e. Kyle. And Nanny thinks that it is bullshit that she would send her in instead of a bunch of rookies. The two of them are arguing, and Nanny claims that Carmaria is now the villain, and she can hang out with whomever she wants with, and she doesn't like how instead of being the underdog or being a gracious person like she was earlier, she now became this naggy, annoying person. Devon is watching this and notes that Cara Maria wants to get rid of anyone who is close to Cal, and she isn't liking how Cara Maria is playing the game this season. Wes tries to make a deal with all three of the women. Devon tries to negotiate a better deal, but Wes outright rejects it, and Cara Maria agrees to the deal. She speaks to Polly about it since they want Polly to be included in the deal just in case he wins to protect Wes, Dee, and Maddie. And there's some tension between the two of them, but she is worried because it is a girls' day, and Polly knows that Wes is doing this to save Polly from targeting him, and that is true. Nanny complains to Maddie about Cara hanging out. Sorry, Nanny is complaining to Maddie about Cara complaining about her hanging out with Kyle, and Maddie being with Kyle, and she says that Carmela used to be nice, and she doesn't take being certain well at all. Everyone is at the cloud, and it seems like the house is divided into. The three nominees talk about Wes's plan, and after Carmaria leaves, since Carmaria was sitting with Devon and Georgia, where they all agree that they weren't going to take whatever deal that Wes pitched to them, Georgia and Devon immediately clock that Carmaria is going to take the deal, and they joke about Wes being Rumpelstiltskin, and neither one of them are going to accept the deal. Georgia and Wes speak, and she calls him out for being a manipulator, so she's not going to make a deal with the devil. And he claims that it is insulting, since you're an idiot if you don't take his deal, which is so eye-roll worthy. Wes writes a note to Carmaria and Polly where they all meet to work together. Kyle and Nanny speak, and she's annoyed with everyone, where she sees that she is probably going to be called out by whomever goes into elimination. Dee and Maddie speak to Cara Maria, and she speaks to them in order to get them to not nominate Polly, where they all agree with. Maddie feels like she stabbed Cal in the back, and they tell Wes that the pair accepted the deal. So, I totally forgot that they did the to be continued bull crap for the last few episodes of the season. The tribunal nominates Georgia, and she ends up choosing Nani as her opponent. The elimination is chairs remain, where an ally of theirs has to tie their opponent to a chair, and the person who escapes it ends up winning. This is arguably the lamest elimination in challenge history. But Georgia chooses Turbo to tie Nani, and Nani chooses West to tie Georgia. Anyways, Georgia is able to break out sooner than Nani as she distracts West from tying her in pretty well. It was nice to see Nani return after 4 seasons and about 2 to 3 years off, though apparently she did it because she broke up with her long-term boyfriend. Her hooking up with Hunter was kind of shocking, as they really just don't have anything in common, as she was more focused this time around, but of course she had a bit of drama at the very end of her run. Anyway, she's back in the casting run for the next several seasons, but this is one of her quieter seasons now that I'm really looking at it. West is not thrilled that his plan to target Georgia failed, and neither him or Hunter are happy with Nanny being gone. Georgia and Devon are thrilled that their plan worked and they didn't make a deal with the devil, as the two are heavily relying on one another now, where both of them are insistent on targeting Wes. Cal knows that he is by himself, and he's complaining about it to Wes and Maddie, especially with her making that deal with Carmaria and Polly, but she had to do what she had to do to preserve herself. Day of Reckoning is the daily where they are paired in pairs for the daily to get as much trash as possible in their batch, where if their batch is the heaviest, they win the daily, and if they're in the top three, they end up in the tribunal. Hunter picks Maddie, Thea picks Carmaria, which annoys the couple. Polly chooses Georgia over Ninja due to Georgia having more endurance. Turbo picks Ninja, and West Indies are forced to be paired together, as no one else is left, which West is throwing a tantrum about, even after learning, or especially after learning that she has asthma. It's interesting seeing some of the dynamics with the teams, and Cal is pretty injured at this point. Ninja is snapping at Turbo, and they end up arguing after the challenge is finished, where she throws a huge tantrum. If anything, it just shows how nuts the both of them are in general, which the edit hit throughout most of the season. Dee then decides to jump into the fight, and she should have stayed her ass out of it. And Polly doesn't get why his former partner is acting like this, since she never acted like this with him. Polly and Georgia, Turbo and Ninja, meaning they fought for literally no reason, and Wes and Devon, ironically, make it to the tribunal, but it is a guy's day, and since there are 3 guys left, i.e., Theo, Hunter, and Cal, there's no need to stress about who to nominate since they're automatically nominated. Ninja now feels regretful for her actions, and Polly is talking about volunteering to go in just to take out Cal himself, and Carmaria tells him that it's extremely idiotic. Hunter is packing his bags as he wants to go home, where it's just a pathetic tantrum due to losing the daily. Carmaria tells the others that Hunter is putting on an act and he isn't going home, and she's absolutely correct about this, and he is, of course, convinced not to quit. I was wrong about there not being an Inquisition, which I thought initially, but we do see Theo completely throwing Hunter under the bus, and Cal mentions that he has paint all over his face, his knee is fucked up, and he also broke his toe, so he's not a threat. We get the obligatory club scene, and Cal mentions that anyone who works with that couple, i.e. Polly and Carmaria, is against him, though he makes up with Maddie due to not having anyone else. Ninja apologizes to Turbo, and he doesn't want to hear it at all, and Dee decides to get involved again to go after him, since he's not taking Ninja's apology, and honestly, Dee just really should have just stayed out of it. Of course, Kyle is voted into elimination, and they're trying to build some sort of suspense of Polly throwing himself in, and of course he isn't stupid enough to fall for that. And it's a hall brawl, and we just saw him perform horribly on it on 40, so we know how this would have went down. It is the hall brawl where it's self-explanatory, where Kyle chooses to go against Theo. It seems like Theo is struggling a bit, and it's ironic that Polly is complaining about Theo's performance, knowing what will happen between the two of them, but he does finally pull out the win over Kyle. I actually enjoyed Cal more here than I have in his prior 2 seasons. I found it ridiculous how Carmaria and Polly handled everything this season, being pissed off at anyone who spoke to him. He had his hookup with Maddie and was more humorous this time around, but a few of the cast members confirmed that him and Polly were kind of cool-ish, and he played up his feud with Polly for the camera, but he was cool with him off camera, which was just annoying in my opinion. At least the triangle drama ends with this season. A lot of people are talking about the last elimination, but Ninja and Theo also talked about Turbo still being mad at her, and we see Theo and Georgia talking about Turbo, or talking to Turbo about the fight, and I'm really overhearing about it at this point. The daily is Crash Landing, where they are on the airplane, solve a puzzle, and have to jump off where they finish. Where the first man and woman who complete it make it to the final, meaning that they skip the next round as well. We see the plane moving around, paper and all other tools flying around the plane. And it's a solid enough daily. Devon knows that she really has no allies at this point, and Dee struggles to get off the plane, as she has a panic attack due to fearing heights and water. Anyways, Turbo and Carmaria secure their spots in the final, with them and Polly making it to the tribunal. Ninja and Dee think that the both of them are going to be nominated, despite the fact that they were his closest friends. Cara Maria wants to protect Maddie and Dee, so Polly nominates Dee, Turbo nominates Natalie and Carmaria chooses Devon, despite them doing a season together beforehand, and her not voting in Polly when she could have. That's Polly's rationale, and Carmaria says that they did a season together before, but she's still protecting two rookies over her. Devon refuses to politic when she sees that she's been nominated, and she prepares herself for elimination. Ninja apologizes to Turbo once again, and she is crying, and he mentions that she did not stop Dee from attacking him, and Dee mentions that she is loyal, but Turbo is just not over Dee attacking him. Polly tells Devon that he isn't voting for her, so there's some sort of protection there at least, and Turbo says that he isn't either, so she should be safe from the vote. We have Dee and Turbo arguing about this yet again, and this is just beyond exhausting at this point. But we do see Ninja eavesdropping on the conversation, but Dee thinks that she is safe. Despite their conversation, Dee still gets Turbo's vote, which shocks her, and Devon is not thrilled that Kara votes for her. But Polly sits in Dee, but it really doesn't matter since Dee chooses Devon to face her in elimination anyways. Tug of war is the elimination where they have to pull a rope and to get the other to drop. So it's pretty self-explanatory, and it's always a fun elimination to have. But we do see Devon beats Dee here, despite Dee being very confident about her chances with this elimination. Though she also thought that she wasn't going in, and that went wrong. So yeah. I did enjoy Dee on the season as she was very underestimated throughout since she had a bunch of phobias and she did seem to have a likable presence here. Though as we know that will change in the future. She did get in some drama with Bear and Turbo, especially at the end, though she did not come off as likable in her drama with Turbo. Anyways, it really isn't shocking that she came back after the season with her good performance and seemingly likable personality. Obviously, West is not thrilled with the results of the elimination for many reasons, which includes Devon staying, who he doesn't like, and Lee leaving, who he does like, and everyone is talking about being so close to the final. Maddie talks about her journey after Party Down South to Devon, where she was in a low place at the time, and people around her don't get this opportunity. Where she and Devon are apparently close, but I guess they only included that to set up suspense for the purge. Polly and Carmaria really want him to get to the final so they can do a final together for the second season in a row. We get to the daily Judgment Day where they have to jump from a container into the water. Then they have to climb up the second one to grab a ring, and then they have to place the ring on another container where the last guy and girl go home. So it's a purge. Turbo and Carmaria do not have to compete in the challenge since they are already in the final. I do like this daily a lot, but it doesn't even matter who wins, but who doesn't get last. We have Polly go first, and he dives into the water there from a very tall surface, like he's doing some professional diving move. And you can tell that he is struggling, and he was very overconfident right before this. And the more he goes, he struggles more and more, and he completely gives out. I believe he got a concussion, which wouldn't be the first time he got a concussion, or wouldn't be the only time he gets a concussion on the show. The entire cast really, is cheering for Polly, which says a lot, and they don't like seeing one another hurt and struggle. Devon also gets last for the women, so Devon and Polly are purged here, which is ironic since they both won the first purge. Anyways, Polly completely breaks down crying in his final confessional. And we do see him getting checked out by the ambulance where he talks about failing. And I think this is the real Polly, the one who isn't putting on any acts, the one who isn't upset, this insecure, vulnerable, emotional side of him. I think that's who the real Paul Calafiori is, despite everything. Devon shocked people this season as she ended up winning 3 eliminations and did well, but not as well on a few of the dailies in this season. And people were shocked with her because she's known for being a very poor comp performer on Big Brother. So she is an example of how doing poor in Big Brother competitions doesn't mean you're going to do poorly in the challenge competitions. Obviously, there's the drama with Wes, which definitely gets very ugly as she's funny as hell, which really isn't shocking to anyone. You can tell that she wasn't as close to Polly this season, and there were issues with her and Carmaria this season. It's a shame that she decided to go back to BB instead of continuing doing the show, though she dealt with a lot of BS during the airing of the show, but she's been on the official podcast and she's going to be on All Stars 5, where I am definitely looking forward to seeing how she does there. So I was mainly on Polly's side last season throughout a lot of the events, but this season I found him to be very annoying. He and Carmaria were so obnoxious about their relationship the entire season, and I was over him playing into the cow feud so much, even when he didn't really feel that intensely about it after a while, and he was so cocky throughout the season, while he had a great downfall here. I will say that he had a really good season where he won the most dailies throughout the season and had a strong political hold. But when Polly is defensive, he just digs deeper and deeper, which we will see in the next season. But he's still great for the show and contributed a lot here. Obviously, Carmaria is sad about Polly being purged right before the final. Though, allegedly, he contacted his ex girlfriend literally right after being purged, which led to the drama between him, Carmaria, and his ex Danielle being released to the press literally right after the season filmed. But obviously, it didn't stop Carmaria and Polly from staying together. Everyone feels like they're in the final, but they don't want to assume it is for sure, though it does end up being confirmed to them soon after that they are in the final. Everyone is talking about the final and the expectations of it, where West tells Theo and Georgia that if they aren't scared a little bit, then they are not prepared for the final. Anyways, they start the final in a truck, with Death Pack being the final that is over 50 miles or something along the line to that, where they have to go through a bunch of kill zones, and if you have the best time, overall, you win. West immediately clocks that this is the longest final ever, and they have to run 6 miles, then they have to ride a bike, then there are a bunch of other checkpoints that I don't really care to recap. Georgia completely passes out as she rides the bike through the sand, and she is taken out of the final when she is checked by the ambulance. I found Georgia to be very likable throughout the season, and she just has an infectious personality throughout, with being underestimated and holding her own. Obviously, her romance with Bear was very awful, and unfortunately, it did not end here, on the season or in real life. I did like her dynamic with Hunter, and I don't really recall her being in a whole lot of drama this season, with the exception of bickering with Hunter and Bear a few times. But I do see why people see her as the female rookie of the season compared to everyone else. And she just has that draw to her. We see people like Turbo and Ninja struggling at several points in this early part of the final, and they have to continue doing several miles while going through all the other checkpoints. Maddie is completely shutting down and she decides to quit the final, where TJ is shockingly not hard on her for quitting, but he does tell her to cut the cigarettes. Maddie seemed very likable throughout the season, but she mainly thrived off of intimidation, where it is why which is why most of the cast really didn't touch her. She did have a hookup or two with Kyle, and I liked her type of humor throughout the season, though I don't remember her being in a bunch of drama outside of that one weird moment with Maria. I know they put her on Floribama Shore in between seasons, so MTV was clearly high on her, but we will see her in another season, no matter how disappointing that season really ended up being throughout the long haul. And it kind of also just showed that she couldn't perform in the final because intimidation really doesn't matter anymore. Leo, Wes, and Turbo are the top three, and I think it's in that order, and they are in the tribunal. A bunch of them are in the truck, and they have to put needles in them, where Carmaria has a huge freak out over it. Carmaria, Hunter, and Ninja are the only ones left, so they're automatically up for elimination. Hunter is voted into elimination, and he chooses Ninja as an opponent. Holding on a rope is the elimination, where a rope is attached to the truck and they have to hold a 50-foot rope, where Hunter easily loses this due to his lack of endurance and body shutting down. I'm kind of glad that his issue with Ashley was solved and deaded within the first elimination, and I found his interactions with Wes to be very interesting this season. He continued getting into fights with many people like Amanda, Josh, Leroy, Turbo, and I'm pretty sure he and Theo also had some words, so he most definitely wasn't boring, and he had a lot of interesting dynamics with his partner Georgia as well. It's really a shame that he hasn't been back, and it's been 6 years as I'm recording this, though he supposedly wants to come back, and I really don't know why they haven't invited him back. But they've invited so many boring newbies and boring veterans and border future vets, but they don't give him another chance. I don't know, it's just ridiculous to me. It is the next morning, and they have to do trivia and walk into one of the three circles that represents an answer. Cara Maria wins the checkpoint, and she has a lead where she can drive on a car while the rest have to run up a dune. She has to wait for an opponent to arrive, so her lead ends, and her lead essentially becomes pointless, as they have to put a bunch of balls into some small pipe or whatever, where four of them have to cross one another. Turbo Bito, and so does Theo and Ninja. The next checkpoint is an eating challenge where it's normal food, which is shocking, where Wes is last at this point. Some of them are having their bodies react poorly, and they get to a checkpoint where Turbo and Carmaria think that they are finished, but it isn't, and they have to tell Theo this as well. They all enter the truck and move to the final checkpoint where they have to go to a kayak while answering equations on the way or during the way, where only four of them will continue on, where one of them will be left there, since there are only four boats. And whomever gets to the finish point first out of the final four will have their times added up, and the placement will be determined by all of that. Cara Maria ends up getting left on the beach and is eliminated here. Cara Maria was annoying as hell this season, but she was always kind of annoying. Better being with Polly, who was also annoying, and them shoving their relationships in people's faces, and her targeting Kyle obsessively, and getting mad at anyone who spoke to him or was cordial to him was just ridiculous and childish. She turned a lot of people off with her antics this season, the fans and the alumni, where it will only get worse from here until the next season. But I have to say that you can't just blame it all on Polly, since there are elements of Carmaria that always acted like this throughout her earlier seasons. But one, the edit either covered it up, or two, people didn't mind it because she was in the position of an underdog, but she wasn't an underdog this season, so the traits that were present beforehand, they didn't like now that she was an overdog. But it shows that people like her because of her position, not necessarily because of her personality. They now have to pretty much row boats to get the lead, and it's to get out of the island. And it's clear that Wes and Turbo are in the lead at this point. Theo arrives to the checkpoint first, then Turbo, then Ninja, and then Wes. But this doesn't mean that that's the order of who will win. With all the times added up to the final, Turbo wins the season, Theo gets second, Wes gets third, and Ninja gets fourth. And the individual win this season was annoying as hell, since it screwed up that Ninja got fourth due to three guys, and despite her being the best woman, she didn't get anything, and she was literally left on the island while the top three flew on a helicopter. Ninja definitely came off as mostly likable in the season, but rewatching it now, there are more annoying elements to her throughout the season that only gets worse in her next season. She and Polly were a good pair together, and I did like her friendship with Dee throughout the season. It was weird seeing how quickly the perception of her changes with only a few months in real life and within the season's airing, and just one season, but rewatching the terrible situation, the signs were always kind of just there. So Wes came back right after getting married, which I didn't know before this rewatch, and taking a few years slash 4 seasons off, and he didn't miss a beat. He got rid of bananas early, so thankfully that fake feud didn't take up a lot of screen time, and he played one of his better political games, where he had good feuds with Bear and Devon throughout the season, and he also came in at his most fit, according to him. Wes was still pretty arrogant and did have some Karen elements in the season, which did annoy me for sure. His partnership with Dee was pretty cool, and he had a strong comeback here, though most of his succeeding seasons was nowhere near close to this. Theo was pretty cool on the season, as he's just very good at riling people up, which we saw with Ashley, we even saw that with Hunter a little bit, and he was pretty funny throughout the season. He had a showmatch with Cam that didn't really go anywhere, and he was a really good performer throughout the challenges. He wasn't in too much of the drama after the first bit of the season, but he was a very promising person, so it makes sense why he came back after this, and he came off as mostly likable here, compared to his social media presence. But that's a whole nother story. Turbo is someone that I like, and he's one of the only people that came from a non-Anglo country this season that was actually a good casting choice. Where I feel like a lot of them in this season and in the future just aren't good for the show, and the language barrier is a huge issue and a huge reason for that. A lot of his content was mainly in the confessionals throughout like the first 2/3 of the season. Him saying chicken was a common phrase for him even then, but he did have a huge temper during the last stretch, which we saw with people like Hunter, D, and Ninja Natalie, and he came off more like a lunatic, which will be more commonplace for him in the future on the show. So, The Miz, who is a former challenger, and Lolo, who will become a challenger herself within a year and a half, are hosting the reunion, and of course they talk about the final, where Georgia is called out about mentioning Bear when she was getting DQ'd, where they hooked up the night prior to the reunion, that's what I mean. And he threw her out of the hotel room, which they shouldn't have even done with them hooking up again. The Miz calls out Hunter for quitting in the final, and he mentions that no one is dealing with, or no one dealt with having the money stolen from him, and many people wouldn't have come back from that, a la Sarah. Amanda calls out Wes and Gus on Twitter as she calls Gus and Jenna boring and being influenced by Wes. Gus and Josh fought about them both doing shit for camera time, and this was a shitty attempt for Gus to get a callback, which we all know failed. Cam and Devon unfollowed one another on Instagram, and Cam mentioned Devon's YouTube videos. It involved Theo, and they both agreed that it didn't involve Theo, though they both had a crush on him. Devon calls her out for not being honest. Devon mentions Cam's letter that Cam sent to Devon before she went into elimination with Gus and Jenna because Cam thought that Devon was going to go home, where she apologized for being dishonest, and Cam mentioned that she didn't know for sure what she was apologizing for. Devon wanted Cam to tell her, and Theo mentioned that he and Devon did flirt a bit, but it went nowhere, but they all ended up making up. And I do remember Cam said during the season that Devon had a boyfriend, which is why she was even more confused. The UK Alliance is discussed where Polly and Ashley end up arguing randomly. They're getting in one another's faces, and it looks like Polly wants to kiss him, since you can see Polly looking at Ashley's lip, where the both of them are making fun of one another for being short, and they're both short as hell. Yet again, I can't understand what Ashley is saying. And yet again, there's always this weird energy coming from Polly when he's arguing with guys, almost like it's turning him on. It's interesting watching things in hindsight. That's all I'm gonna say. We get to Zach and Kara's drama, and she mentioned that it did hurt because Zach was a friend to her. And Zach mentions that Kara pissed him off with people, with her being mad at him being friends with Kyle. And several people on the season said this. I do remember that. And he was annoyed with them trying to turn him, i.e., Zach, and Kyle against one another, which Kyle didn't respect either. Zach does end up apologizing for attacking their relationship, and Polly thinks that Zach did it as an attempt to discredit him as a player. So I don't see how attacking their relationship discredited Polly as a player. They're two separate things. And Polly mentions that Johnny said that because he latches on to people for followers. And yeah, because Johnny said that's what Polly does, if I remember correctly. Johnny mentions that post-final reckoning, him, i.e. Johnny, and Cara Maria stopped being close and mentioned that Polly's intentions are not good. So they go back and forth about this, and I'm pretty sure Johnny is also referencing to the cheating scandal, but he didn't outright mention it here. And Polly claims that he can win where he isn't. Polly claims that he can win whether Cara Maria is there or not, and he isn't using her for clout. Bear, Theo, and Georgia went to Thailand, and Georgia reveals that they had sex there too. And Bananas uses this as a jab somehow at Wes randomly, but we have Wes and Bear still snipping at one another. Leroy and Cam's relationship, or like they're off, is discussed, and she went to Vegas where he lives to see someone, and he kicked her out of his house. And he says that she only knows him and Kayla, but she wasn't seeing Kayla, so that's how he knew that she was seeing a guy. They hooked up the night before she saw this guy, and he was annoyed that Cam was trying to make him jealous, and doing it at his house. Cam mentions that the editing was accurate when it comes to his behavior, and Leroy told her over the phone that he never loved her. He comes out so awfully here. Leroy mentioned his biggest regret is sleeping with Cam, where they both mentioned beforehand that it would have been a regret because they wanted to keep their friendship before they hooked up, but that's lost at this point. As of this moment, regarding the reunion, they are dead, but we all know that this doesn't last. Wes's gameplay is discussed, and he reached out to a bunch of the veterans, which he will also do next season, and Bananas calls out Wes for manipulating people every season, and how no one will trust him next season, and he wasn't lying about that. Wes yells at Bananas about a bunch of stuff, how he's the boss, blah 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 blah. Bananas mentioned that the house beat him, but Wes took credit for all of it. Wes and Devon is discussed, where she says that Wes told her that they had no problem until the elimination with Jenna and Gus. Wes mentioned that Devon did threaten him, but she mentioned that he said that she was going to have him killed, which she never said that, and they played the footage. So she got a bunch of racist rhetoric on social media from his fans, where they apparently called her job and said that she didn't deserve her child, etc., all that. She's literally bursting in tears. Cam ends up defending her here despite their issues, and Wes does apologize. Apparently, according to the cast and the people who were at the reunion, i.e., the audience, it took Wes over an hour to apologize, and it was like pulling teeth. The Bananas and Zach stuff is discussed, and he mentioned that Zach did not sacrifice himself for him, i.e., Bananas, last season, but he did it for Tony, and Zach did the same thing on X's, where Zach was playing both sides between Bananas and Wes. Zach told Bananas that he would throw the elimination to him this season, and Bananas think that it's all BS. Zach mentions that he did tell Bananas that since he didn't want to be in the house, but he was not really working with Wes. Leroy jumps in to defend Bananas for some reason, since Zach apparently does this every season, and I think Leroy should have just sat this one out. Zach denies that he was working with Wes, though they admit that they are friends in real life, where Bananas mentions that he wanted Zahida because she sucked in the purge and thought that it would be an easy way to get eliminated, and Amanda does mention that he did say that. They mentioned that Zach was thrilled because she would lose the elimination, and Bananas accuses Zach of losing the elimination to Wes on purpose. Zach did mention that he made a deal to lay down for Bananas, but he didn't make that deal with Wes. And of course, Zahida doesn't feel well after all this information, and who can blame her? Leroy is calling Zach a shitty person, and I don't know why Leroy gives a fuck so much. It doesn't involve him. But Bananas will never trust Zach again, or at least that's what he's claiming. We move on to Polly and Kyle's issues throughout the season, and Kyle calls him a pussy for not joining him in elimination, despite all the shit talk he did throughout the season. They, quote unquote, seemingly have a mutual respect for one another, but Amanda mentions that the both of them got along off camera, and like I mentioned throughout this video, she's not the first one to say this, but they will never be friends or align with one another, and I believe that they've stated similar commentary in recent years, well after this. Cara Maria mentions that no one should go into elimination voluntarily, and Bananas agrees with Kyle about Polly being a pussy. Bear and George's relationship is discussed, and Cara Maria mentions that Wes told her about it, and they wanted to tell Georgia about it. Devon, for some reason, decides to pick a fight about this, where she apparently tweeted that Cara Maria only did it to cause a stir, and she told Cara Maria to not get involved, but Cara Maria decided to do so anyways, because Carmilla wanted Bear to get told off. Carmilla mentions that Devon was not going to tell her, and this is all dumb as hell, with Devon doing some dumbass dance, but even Georgia mentioned that it was shady for Devon not to tell her, and they're just arguing over stupidness. Devon mentioned Polly cheating with the ex, and Carmilla lays with him as well, and this is honestly a low blow, since Polly, quote unquote, her brother, she's using to throw under the bus to get at Cara Maria. And I just think that Devon was just that Polly prioritized Cara Maria over her this season. And Polly mentions that it was a low blow. She called out Bear for being trash, and Amanda is chiming in about Cara for being trash. And I think it was Zach who mentioned that Cara didn't know that she was being cheated on yet. So they're all talking about this, and you can tell Polly and Cara Maria are just not thrilled that this is being brought up. And I also think Cara Maria didn't like that Devon was friendly with Kyle and Amanda as well. Anyways, we learned that Bear's quote-unquote cousin blocked him on social media. Polly adds that Kyle had a girlfriend at home but was sleeping with Maddie, so it's essentially the pot calling the kettle black. Nani missed Hunter after being eliminated, but she realized something was off, and he gave her no actual information about his life, which he was telling Jenna about, but she had a gut feeling that Hunter had a girlfriend, and a few DMs sent to her confirmed it. Hunter mentioned that he didn't have a girlfriend while he was with her, though he is with someone now, and Nani calls Hunter out about having a baby on the way. And just by the way Hunter is reacting, you can tell that he feels very guilty. He was very demure and quiet, but he's always ready to pop off on someone when he needs to defend something. So I kind of think that he was lying to Nani. We do learn that Ashley and Zahida and Julia and Hunter hooked up, where it is also announced that Morgan and Bananas are dating now. Amanda and Gus argue about Tim and Jenna being boring, who offers nothing to the show, and Carmaria stands firm in Amanda being untrustworthy and unlikable. Ninja called Carmaria out for calling her annoying, and Carmaria tells her to blow it off, since she, i.e. Carmaria, has been called worse by many people. Though if someone called Carmaria annoying, she would lose a lid. Bananas wants Devon to apologize to him, Theo, and Carl for the video she made about them taping Amanda up, where she, i.e. Devon, was not around for it, where Zahida and Georgia were also a part of it, where they were made to seem like they were sexual heirs, to fill in the blanks. They all agree that there's no malicious intent, but she did help pull it out of Amanda's hair, and she was crying. Devon does apologize. Amanda mentions that the press blew it up. Zach and Jenna's issues are brought up, and Amanda dropped the bomb at the time, and Jenna got involved in the argument with her and Zach, where Jenna says that she was trying to calm the situation down. The two of them argue about Amanda always talking shit on social media, where Jenna doesn't do that, and Amanda's tired of Jenna DMing her about everything said on social media, almost like begging her to apologize. Zach mentioned that he would be dumb to show Amanda, Jose, and Devon him being on Bumble. Carmier then uses this to take a jab at Devon for some reason, wondering if she told her new BFF Amanda about being wrong for attempting to ruin a relationship. Devon just yells, "It's not about you, clown! Clown! Clown!" They are yelling at one another, and I'm just as annoyed at them as Polly is. And I really do feel for him at this moment for dealing with these two nut jobs. And Jenna mentions that Devon told her that nothing happened, so this is all a nothing breaker. Zach mentioned that he needed space, and Jenna is the one who likes to talk things out, but they are better than ever now. The final segment is about Turbo and Ninja, where everything is fine between them. So, this video isn't as long as the Final Reckoning video, which I'm honestly grateful for. And my opinion on this season, in conclusion, is that I really do like the season. I do think that the format brought a lot of structure to the show, which was definitely missing after the last few seasons. It was very simplistic. I liked the scenery of the season, not only just from the location, but the design and all of that, with it being a bit more militaristic in comparison. I think the veteran cast was very stacked, and while I do like a lot of the newbies here, there are a decent amounts that were complete that, and even with the ones that I liked, a lot of them only did one more season after this, and after Total Madness, most of them were essentially irrelevant, where only Josh and now Theo and Trevor are the only relevant ones who are still consistently doing the show. So this season was kind of a failed reboot when you compare it to a Fresh Meat 1, a Fresh Meat 2, though it's definitely more successful than Battle of the Bloodlines. There's a lot of drama in the season, but there's a lot of strategy, and there was a lot of competitiveness as well, and there's a great balance, which is something that Era 4 was missing in general. The first two seasons had a lot of drama and not much else, where the latter seasons has a lot of boring game talk and boring gameplay, and very little drama. So has the perfect balance. Though I really don't like that this introduced the random international people who are brought in who some of them don't even speak English. Two, they have no connections to anyone, so it makes it easier to steamroll the rookies. Or at least in the prior seasons, they cast a bunch of people who knew one another, so there are some dynamicism between the interactions. They kind of have a built-in alliance, and then they're not just walking in being led to the slaughter. So that's an element of War of the Worlds I don't like, and they took the wrong message from War of the Worlds. This would also be the final season that was an hour long in episode length, where every season after this would be an hour and a half long, if I'm remembering correctly. And the starts to get larger around this point in time. So, anyways, the season's probably in my top 10, but it will most likely be on the lower end of my top 10. But every time I rewatch it, this is my second time rewatching it after its initial airing. I like it, but I don't think that it's aged as well as they probably wanted it to. And while it's better than a lot of the seasons, it doesn't hold up to some of the greats. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with some commentary soon.